Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. The night Alice told me she was sleeping at her ex's house, I didn't ask her to stay. I looked at her across our kitchen and said, "Then take your bag." She stared at me. "What?" "You heard me. We had been married for 7 years. We lived in a quiet coastal town where everybody seemed to know everybody else's business. I worked at a marine equipment company, and Alice managed a small design firm downtown. For the last 2 months, something had been wrong. She started coming home late without warning. She kept her phone face down. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd say it was work. I didn't accuse her of cheating. I asked direct questions. She gave me vague answers. That night, I finally confronted her. "You've been disappearing 3 or 4 nights a week," I said. "And every time I ask where you've been, you give me another excuse." Alice crossed her arms. "Maybe I'm tired of being questioned every time I walk through the door." "I'm not questioning you because you walked through the door. I'm questioning you because your story keeps changing." Her expression hardened. "You know what? I'm done with this." She grabbed her purse from the counter. I watched her. "Where are you going?" She gave me a cold smile. "I'm sleeping at my ex's house tonight." For a second, neither of us moved. Then I asked, "Matthew?" She hesitated. That hesitation told me enough. "Yes," she said. "Matthew." I nodded once. She seemed almost disappointed by my reaction. "That's it? You're not going to stop me?" "No!" Her face changed. "William, I'm serious." "So am I." She picked up her overnight bag from the hallway. At the front door, she turned around. "I thought you'd at least fight for us." I looked directly at her. "You made your choice." She stood there for another few seconds, waiting for me to say something different. I didn't. She opened the door and walked out. I watched her car disappear down the street. Then I locked the door. I wasn't going to chase my wife to another man's house. But before I went to bed, I did one thing. I opened our joint bank account on my laptop, and that's when I found the first thing Alice had forgotten to hide. The first payment was only $480. It was listed as a transfer to an account I didn't recognize. I checked the date, 6 weeks earlier. Then I found another, $720. Then another, $1,200, all going to the same account. I sat back and looked at the screen. Alice had never mentioned any of it. I opened the account history and went through the previous 3 months. There were 9 transfers in total, almost $8,000. I didn't call her. I didn't send a message. I took screenshots and saved the statements to my computer. Then I checked the joint credit card. There was a hotel charge from 2 months earlier, another restaurant I'd never heard of, a fuel purchase in a town almost an hour away. The dates matched several of the nights Alice had supposedly been working late. I kept going. At 2:14 in the morning, my phone finally rang. "Alice," I answered. "Are you home?" she asked. "Yes." There was a pause. "I just wanted to know if you're okay." "I'm fine." She sounded irritated. "You could at least tell me what you're doing." "I could," I said. "But tonight I'm more interested in what you've been doing." Silence. "What does that mean?" "I found the transfers." Her breathing changed. "What transfers?" $8,000 to an account I don't recognize." She didn't answer. "Who is it, Alice?" "I'll explain tomorrow." "No, you can explain now." She lowered her voice. "William, I'm at Matthew's. I'm not doing this over the phone." "That's convenient." "Don't start. You started this when you walked out that door." She went quiet again. Then she said, "I'll come home in the morning." "Fine." I ended the call. I didn't sleep much that night, but I didn't spend it pacing around the house either. I made coffee, opened the laptop, and organized everything I'd found. At 7 the next morning, I called my friend Mark. We had worked together years earlier, and Mark now handled business accounting for several local companies. When I explained what I had found, he didn't ask unnecessary questions. He simply said, "Don't touch the money yet. Save everything first." That's what I'm doing. "And William?" "Yeah? If she's been transferring money to someone, find out why before you confront her." I looked at the account again. "I already know who." Mark paused. "Matthew?" "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. "Then find out what the money was for." That was exactly what I intended to do. Because if Alice was willing to leave our house and spend the night with her ex, I wasn't going to waste my time wondering whether she was telling me the truth. I was going to find out how much of our marriage had already been built around a lie. Alice came home at 9:18 that same morning. I was sitting at the kitchen table when she walked in. She stopped when she saw me. You didn't sleep. I slept enough. She put her bag down. William, about last night. You stayed at Matthew's. She looked away. Yes, you told me that yourself. I was angry. So you went to your ex's house. She rubbed her forehead. It wasn't like that. I leaned back in my chair. Then tell me what it was like. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked into the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. I needed somewhere to go. You have a sister. I wasn't going to her. Why? Because I didn't want questions. I almost laughed. You went to your ex because you didn't want questions? Her jaw tightened. You've been impossible lately. No, I've been asking questions you don't want to answer. She put the glass down harder than necessary. Nothing happened between me and Matthew. I looked at her. Then why did you give him almost $8,000? She froze. That was the first time I saw genuine fear on her face. How did you know about that? Our account. I was going to tell you. When? She didn't answer. I opened my laptop and turned it toward her. I found 9 transfers. Alice stared at the screen. He needed help. With what? His business. I shook my head. You gave my money to your ex? Our money? No, don't change the words. She folded her arms. I was going to pay it back. With what? She had no answer. I stood up. How long has this been going on? Nothing has been going on. Alice? She looked at me. How long? Her eyes dropped. About 4 months. 4 months. I nodded slowly. And you expect me to believe nothing happened? I told you we talked. That's all. At hotels? Her head snapped up. I watched her carefully. She knew. You checked the card. I checked everything. She sat down. For the first time, she looked exhausted. William, I made mistakes. No, you made choices. She started crying quietly. I didn't move toward her. I think we need to talk about counseling, she said. We're past counseling. Don't say that. You spent 4 months lying to me, gave thousands of dollars to your ex, and then told me you were sleeping at his house. I closed the laptop. There's nothing left to discuss. Her voice dropped. Are you divorcing me? I looked straight at her. Yes. This time, she didn't argue. She just stared at me. And I knew the fight had finally changed sides. Alice didn't accept the divorce. For the next week, she changed completely. She stopped coming home late. She started cooking dinner again. She asked about my work and tried to act like we were repairing something. I didn't play along. 3 days after I told her I was divorcing her, she sat across from me at dinner. Can we please talk like we used to? We're talking. No, you're sitting there like I'm a stranger. You made me a stranger when you started hiding your life. She put her fork down. I told you I was sorry. Sorry doesn't erase 4 months. What do you want from me? I want the truth. She stared at me. I told you everything. No, you told me what you thought I already knew. She looked away. That was enough. The next morning I met Mark at his office. I brought him copies of the bank statements and credit card records. He went through them carefully. These payments weren't random, he said. What do you mean? They're almost always followed by withdrawals from another account. Whose? Matthew's. I stared at him. So Alice wasn't just helping him. Looks like she was keeping his business alive. Mark turned his monitor toward me. There were payments for equipment, insurance, and 2 months of commercial rent. I leaned closer. She never told me he was having financial problems? She probably didn't want you asking why your money was going there. I nodded. There was another document in the folder, a payment confirmation from a marina supplier. The description caught my attention. Deposit for vessel repair. I recognized the company. Matthew had mentioned years earlier that he wanted to buy an old fishing boat and turn it into a charter business. I looked at Mark. Can you trace where the money went? I can document the transfers. Your attorney can handle the rest. I hadn't even told Alice I'd hired one yet. That afternoon, I met Claire Bennett, a divorce attorney recommended by Mark. I gave her everything. She studied the documents and asked one question. Did Alice have permission to use the joint account for these payments? No. Did you ever agree to support Matthew's business? Absolutely not. She closed the folder. Then don't confront either of them. Let the records speak. I nodded. Before I left, Claire added, and don't move money just to punish her. Protect your share legally. I won't. When I returned home that evening, Alice was waiting. I spoke to Matthew, she said. I stopped. What did he want? He says you're making this bigger than it is. I looked at her for a moment. Matthew has an interesting opinion for a man who took $8,000 from my marriage. Her face went pale. That's not fair. I picked up my keys. No, Alice. What's not fair is making me finance the man you chose over me. She stepped toward me. William, please. I opened the door. Talk to your attorney. Then I walked out. The divorce was no longer a threat. It was already moving forward. Alice's attorney tried a different approach once the divorce papers were officially filed. He claimed I had abandoned the marriage emotionally and that Alice had been trying to repair things while I refused to cooperate. Claire didn't react. She simply placed the bank records on the table. Then explain these, she said. Alice's attorney looked through the statements. These transfers are being disputed. By whom? Claire asked. By my client. Claire slid another document across the table. Your client admitted she gave money to Matthew. She says it was a loan. Then where is the loan agreement? He didn't answer. Claire leaned back. Where are the repayment terms? Again, silence. The meeting ended without a settlement. 2 weeks later, we went before the judge for a preliminary hearing. Alice sat beside her attorney. She looked at me before we entered the courtroom. William, I stopped. Please don't do this. Do what? Destroy everything. I looked at her. You destroyed it when you took my money and gave it to him. Her attorney touched her arm. Let's go. Inside the courtroom, her attorney argued that I was being unreasonable. He claimed the money was a personal loan between Alice and Matthew and had nothing to do with the divorce. Claire stood when it was our turn. We have bank records showing repeated transfers from marital funds, credit card charges corresponding with meetings between Mrs. Turner and Mr. Matthew, and payments directly connected to his business. Alice's attorney objected. Speculation. Claire didn't even look at him. We also have records from the supplier confirming that one of those payments was made toward Mr. Matthew's vessel. The judge reviewed the documents. Then he looked at Alice. Mrs. Turner, did you authorize these transfers? Alice swallowed. Yes. Did your husband authorize them? No. The courtroom went quiet. Her attorney tried to interrupt. Your Honor, my client believed the money would benefit the family indirectly. I almost turned around. That was the first time I realized they were going to try anything to make her actions sound reasonable. The judge wasn't convinced. He ordered the financial records to be reviewed as part of the divorce settlement. After the hearing, Alice caught up with me in the courthouse hallway. You could have talked to me before taking this to court. I did. When? Every time I asked you where you were. She shook her head. You don't understand. No, I said. I understand perfectly. She lowered her voice. Matthew and I weren't supposed to become serious. I stared at her. Become serious? She looked down. I stepped closer. You weren't supposed to become serious while married to me? She didn't answer. Then she whispered, It wasn't supposed to happen. I nodded. That's the first honest thing you've said. I walked away before she could respond, but I wasn't finished. There was still one thing I hadn't shown her, and she had no idea I had it. The thing I hadn't shown Alice was a recording, not of her and Matthew, of a conversation I'd had with one of her friends. Her name was Lauren, and she had called me 2 days after the first hearing. She sounded nervous. I don't know if I should be telling you this. If you're calling me, you probably should. She took a breath. Alice told me something months ago. What? She said she was thinking about leaving you for Matthew. I said nothing. Lauren continued. She told me Matthew was going through financial problems and that she wanted to help him get back on his feet. When did she tell you this? Before the first transfer. That mattered, because Alice had told the court the money was simply a loan after things between her and Matthew had already become complicated. I asked Lauren if she was willing to confirm what she had said. She hesitated. Then she agreed. I gave her Claire's contact information. 2 days later, Claire called me. Lauren gave a statement. What did she say? Enough to establish that Alice was planning to leave you months before she admitted the relationship existed. I sat quietly. Then Claire added something else. There's more. She sent me a copy of a document. It was an email Alice had sent to Matthew. The email was from 4 months earlier. She had written that once the divorce was finished, she wanted to start over somewhere new. The date was important. It was 3 weeks before Alice's first transfer of marital money. I forwarded everything to Claire. She included it in the evidence package. Alice didn't know about any of it. A week later, her attorney requested another settlement meeting. This time, Alice came herself. She looked at me across the table. Why are you doing this? I'm not doing anything to you. You're making me look like a criminal. I'm showing what happened. She shook her head. You could forgive me. No. After 7 years? 7 years is exactly why I won't pretend this didn't happen. She looked at Claire. Can he really take the money back? Claire answered before I could. The court will decide how the marital funds are divided. Alice looked at me again. What about the house? I'll keep my share. And Matthew? I paused. What about him? She looked down. He's leaving. That was the first time I understood the final twist. Leaving you? She nodded. He says he can't deal with all this. I almost smiled. Not because I was happy, because Alice had spent months risking our marriage to build a future with him. And the moment that future became difficult, Matthew walked away. I stood. Then you should talk to him. Alice looked up at me. I don't want Matthew anymore. I picked up my folder. That's not my problem. For the first time, she understood. There was no second chance waiting for her. The trial was next. The final hearing was 3 weeks later. Alice arrived with her attorney, but Matthew wasn't there. I noticed immediately. Alice noticed that I noticed. She looked away. The judge reviewed the financial records first. Claire explained the transfers, the credit card charges, and the payments made toward Matthew's business. Then Lauren's statement was entered into the record. Alice's attorney tried to argue that Lauren had misunderstood what Alice meant. Claire asked one simple question. Did Mrs. Turner authorize the transfers? Yes. Did her husband authorize them? No. Did she intend to leave the marriage for Matthew? Alice's attorney objected. The judge allowed the question because it was relevant to the financial dispute. Alice sat very still. Her attorney leaned toward her. She finally answered. At the time, yes. The room went quiet. Claire didn't press her. She didn't need to. The judge turned to the financial records. Mrs. Turner, can you explain why marital funds were used to pay for Mr. Matthews' business expenses? Alice looked at me. I thought we were going to build something together. After my husband was gone, she added quietly. The judge looked back at the documents. Did your husband know about this plan? No. That was it. The story Alice had been telling about a confused woman making mistakes during a troubled marriage was gone. She had been planning a different life while still using mine to finance it. The judge ruled that the disputed transfers would be accounted for in the division of marital assets. Alice would be responsible for returning a substantial portion of the money. The divorce itself was granted. The house was sold, and the proceeds were divided according to the settlement. There would be no ongoing financial support between us. When the judge finished, Alice looked at me. William. I stopped near the courtroom door. She walked toward me slowly. I never wanted it to end like this. I looked at her. You told me you were sleeping at Matthew's house. I was angry. You said it because you wanted to hurt me. She looked down. I thought you'd stop me. That's the part you never understood. She looked up. I would have stopped you from leaving our house, I said. I wasn't going to stop you from choosing another man. Her eyes filled with tears. Can we at least talk someday? No, she flinched. Why? Because there's nothing left to negotiate. I walked out. Outside, Mark was waiting beside his car. How'd it go? It's over. He nodded. Then he asked, You okay? I looked back at the courthouse. Yeah. And for the first time, I meant it. 6 months after the divorce, I barely recognized the life I had been living before. I moved into a smaller place near the water. It wasn't fancy, but everything in it was mine. No hidden phone, no unexplained nights, no arguments that started because I asked a simple question. Work improved too. Without the constant problems at home, I started taking on bigger projects. My manager noticed and gave me a better position. Mark joked that I finally looked like I was sleeping again. I am, I told him. He laughed. Alice had not disappeared completely. There were still payments being made toward the money she owed. Every month I received a statement showing another amount had been returned. I never celebrated those payments. They weren't revenge. They were simply the result of what the court had decided. Then, one evening, my phone rang from an unknown number. I answered. William? I recognized Alice immediately. I said nothing. I know you don't want to hear from me. You're right. She took a breath. I just wanted to apologize. For what? There was a long silence. For everything. I looked out the window. That isn't enough. I know. She sounded different. Less confident. What happened with Matthew? I asked. He left. I know. He said he couldn't handle the pressure. I almost laughed. That sounds like Matthew. She was quiet. Then she said, I thought I was going to have a better life. You chose it. I know. Another silence. Do you ever think about us? I answered honestly. Sometimes. She seemed surprised. But not the way you want me to. What does that mean? It means I remember the good years. I also remember the night you walked out. She started crying. I shouldn't have said that. No. I thought you'd fight for me. I leaned back. That's where you were wrong. She waited. I continued. When you told me you were sleeping at your ex's house, you thought you were giving me a reason to chase you. I looked at the empty room around me. You actually gave me a reason to stop. She didn't answer. After a few seconds, I ended the call. I didn't block the number. I didn't need to. There was nothing left for Alice to say that could change what happened. I remembered that first night sometimes. She had expected me to beg. Instead, I opened our bank account. I found the truth. Then I followed it wherever it led. Alice thought leaving for Matthew's house would make me fight for our marriage. She was right about one thing. It changed everything, just not in the way she expected. She left that night thinking she had chosen another man. I stayed home and chose myself. Thank you for watching.